Loneliness isn't just an emotion, it's a silent killer. This is the second of 3 videos that I'm doing in a series on male loneliness. In the first video, I talked more about spotting the subtle signs and patterns of how loneliness shows up in our lives. And if you want to check that out, I'll put a link in the description below. And in this video, we're going to dive deeper into the impact and the danger of male loneliness. We'll take a look at the physical health impacts, the mental health impacts, and the social consequences of loneliness when it's not addressed. Believe it or not, loneliness can have a significant impact on our physical well-being. Harvard had conducted a study with over 40,000 individuals where they were monitoring their heart and brain vitals, and they found that participants who reported feeling lonely had a 29% higher risk of heart disease and a 32% higher risk of stroke. They found that the likely mechanism of this is the chronic stress that comes with loneliness. On this same note, with that increase in stress is the increase in cortisol, which drives an increase in inflammation in our body. And not only does that cause long-term degenerative diseases, but it also weakens our immune system in the day-to-day. So with that weakened immune system, individuals are more likely to experience illness, infections, autoimmune diseases, and those long-term degenerative diseases that I had mentioned earlier. It also acts as a double whammy because when we are stressed, we are making poor decisions. And in those moments, we're more likely to eat bad food or not take care of our body or pull away from the people that matter in our lives. Not only are we ramping up cortisol and compromising our immune system and our ability to fight back viruses or whatever illnesses come through, we're also making poorer decisions in our lives. And so this creates a positive feedback cycle where every choice we make is going to further amplify our stress levels, further disconnect us, further cause more internal and external suffering. In recent years, there's also been some critical findings around loneliness and lifespan. And a recent study found that loneliness increases the risk of premature death by 26%, showing that loneliness has as severe an impact on health as smoking or obesity. The statistics that I've just shared here highlight how addressing loneliness is not just a mental health issue, but it is a physical well-being and social well-being issue as well. And with that said, let's take a deeper look at how loneliness impacts mental health. Those who experience loneliness are much more likely to experience higher levels of anxiety and depression because as they start to experience a deeper sense of isolation, they're going to feel a growing sense of worthlessness and hopelessness. And as that continues to amplify, that will push them to cut off their social ties and further amplify that sense of loneliness. There is an underlying stigma that men should have their shit together. And if they can't deal with their problems on their own, there's something wrong with them. And this idea of men being stoic and having all their shit together causes them to push it down and not talk about it, rather than actively go and seek support or talk to somebody about what's going on in their lives. So in addition to that growing sense of anxiety, the growing hopelessness and worthlessness, the chances of a man speaking up about that to somebody in their lives is very low. When we are experiencing more loneliness, anxiety, depression, and other unaddressed emotions, the likelihood to experience addiction is significantly higher. Men are more likely to turn to substances or gambling or other outlets to be able to not address whatever is lingering underneath the surface. It's easier to disconnect, to avoid, to numb. A mentor once told me something interesting about numbing. And he suggested that it's not the absence of feeling emotions. It's when the emotions that we experience are too overwhelming. And so we find ways to suppress and detach from that. So it's actually the overwhelm of emotion, not the absence of it, that leads to the experience of numbing. When we are seeking the tendency and the desire to numb or to push something away, addiction is right around the corner. And all of those tendencies to want to seek external validation, external pleasures, external dopamine hits, rather than do that deeper, more uncomfortable thing, that's going to be something that we need to look at. And so whenever I'm seeking a desire to numb, is likely that an indication that there's something underneath waiting for me to be addressed. And maybe if it's too overwhelming, to seek support, to get some help, to be able to actually move through this in a constructive way. One of the most concerning statistics with loneliness is its implications and correlation with suicide. And suicides have been on a dramatic rise in recent years, and that trend does not look to be slowing. In fact, it seems to be accelerating. Research and statistics show a strong correlation between loneliness, despair, and suicide. And this is particularly compounded when layered on top of financial stress and emotional suppression. Here are some alarming statistics on the increased rates of suicide. Globally, more than 800,000 people die by suicide each year, which equates to one death every 40 seconds. Suicide rates have increased by 14% between 2010 and 2020. Men represent roughly 80% of suicide deaths around the world. The suicide rate for middle-aged men has increased by 40% from 1999 to 2017. And suicide rate among teenage boys and young men has also risen significantly, with a 50% increase in the US over the past 2 decades. These statistics are staggering, and something that's really important to highlight is when one person dies, it is an absolute tragedy. And when multiple people die, it's a statistic. And it is not something to forget that 800,000 individuals dying every single year of their own volition is an absolute tragedy for all of us. And this is something that we need to really take our time and consideration to look at what the hell is going on and how we can be more proactive to make sure people stop falling through the cracks. A recent study found that socially isolated individuals were more than twice as likely to report suicidal thoughts. And this really highlights the need for community connection and coming together in places where we can feel supported and seen in who we are. This is an imperative that we must lean into as we move forward. Not only are there physical and mental health consequences to loneliness, but there are also social and behavioral consequences that impact society as a whole. Prolonged loneliness can often lead to frustration, anger, and even aggressive or destructive behavior that causes men to further isolate. Moreover, a man who is lonely and experiencing that deeper aggression is somebody who's not going to create a sense of safety for those that he is around in his life. So his home environment, his communal environment, his neighbors might not feel as safe in his presence because of that underlying aggression and that desire to wall off. Moreover, loneliness can lead to a sense of purposelessness and aimlessness, causing men to experience a lack of meaning in their daily lives. And so it could feel more like we're just getting up and going through the motions. If you are noticing that your life seems mundane and unfulfilled and lacks a sense of meaning, this is a really important sign to look at. Maybe there's an underlying sense of loneliness. I'm craving deeper connection, authentic connection, to be more seen. Or maybe there's underlying emotions that I'm not addressing and I'm not sharing with other people in my life, so I'm carrying shame. Notice that pattern if you're lacking day-to-day meaning and a general sense of unfulfillment. It is an indicator that there is something underneath that needs to be addressed. And it's not something that you need to address alone. Something to really keep in mind as well is that men want to feel like they are contributing, that they are of value, that they are needed within their families and within their communities, within their partnership. And when they are lacking that, there is a significantly higher risk of mental health issues and even suicide. So again, notice if you feel like you are not in a sense of contribution. And if you know a man in your life, let him know that he's needed. Let him know that he's appreciated. Let him know that he is loved and valued for what he brings. One final thing to keep in mind is that loneliness can be a self-perpetuating cycle where when we start to withdraw, we feel a growing sense of hopelessness and purposelessness and want to pull away even more because we don't feel confident, we don't feel connected, we don't feel seen. And that causes a sense of resentment, a lack of confidence to put ourselves out there to take risks, and causes a deeper sense of isolation. We need to internally become aware of when we are withdrawing and for what reasons, and also notice the people in our lives when they start to withdraw, and maybe just drop in a call or drop in a message and tell that person that you're thinking about them, that you love them, that you care about them, that they mean something to you. We need to start thinking about loneliness differently and treating it for the impact that it actually can have on our lives individually and as a collective. And that means coming together and creating a stronger community, deeper social cohesion, and support networks so that people stop falling through the cracks. The dangers of loneliness are real and cannot be ignored. But the good news is there are ways to combat it. And in the next video, we'll dive into actionable strategies you can use to deepen connections and overcome loneliness. If you're still listening to this video, please hit subscribe. It helps the algorithm push this out to more individuals who can hear this message and allows you to stay up to date on all the new videos that I start to put out on similar topics. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Stu Murray, and we'll see you next week.